proud to see you finally embracing your true worth. Now, go help others find theirs." His words resonated profoundly. He was right, my story was no longer just mine, it was a beacon for others still fighting their own silent battles. If my journey taught me anything, it was that our greatest achievements were rarely material. They were the moments we overcame doubt, found courage within ourselves, and inspired others to do the same. Taking a deep breath, I opened my laptop, fingers poised thoughtfully over the keyboard. With clarity and conviction, I began typing my next chapter, not merely as an entrepreneur, but as someone committed to lifting others out of invisibility into self-belief and resilience. My mission now was clear: to ensure no one else felt alone or unseen in their struggles. Finishing my thoughts, I closed the laptop gently. Stars blinked quietly above, the peaceful night wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. After years of internal turmoil, I'd finally found peace. Not because my family finally recognized my worth, but because I had discovered it within myself. Success wasn't validation from others, it was the unwavering confidence that I had built something real, valuable, and lasting, not just a company, but an identity I was proud to own. As I stood slowly, turning to go back inside, I caught my reflection in the porch window. For the first time, I saw not shadows or uncertainty, but someone who had fought courageously, survived countless storms, and emerged stronger, wiser, and fully visible. Smiling softly, I whispered quietly into the calm night air, "Welcome home." Have you ever fought silently for your dreams? Have you ever doubted your worth, only to finally discover your true strength? I'd genuinely love to hear your stories. Share them below, and let's inspire each other. If this journey resonated with you, consider subscribing and sharing. Let's help others step confidently out of their shadows. Yet the real victory had nothing to do with the external successes splashed across headlines. It came from within. After years of hiding in the shadows, masking my ambitions, and quietly absorbing the judgments of others, I finally stood firmly, confidently, authentically myself. One crisp autumn afternoon, I sat on the back porch of my parents' home, gazing out at the amber and crimson leaves cascading slowly onto the lawn. My family sat quietly around me, their conversations gentler, their laughter easier. The atmosphere had changed profoundly, not merely because of my accomplishments, but because I'd changed. My quiet confidence, finally rooted in genuine self-worth, radiated outward, shifting relationships I'd long thought irreparable. Julia approached me cautiously, settling down quietly by my side. Her once sharp eyes now held a softness I'd rarely seen. "It's strange, isn't it?" she murmured, sipping her coffee thoughtfully. "How you spent years trying to convince everyone of your worth, and in the end, the only person you had to convince was yourself." I smiled faintly, nodding. "You're right. For so long I chased validation, desperate for everyone else's approval. But when I finally learned to value myself, their opinions mattered less." Julia sighed softly, her gaze distant. "I envy that, that strength. I always needed everyone's approval, even if I pretended otherwise." I studied her carefully, compassion softening my heart. "You'll get there too," I assured gently. "It's never too late to discover who you truly are." Julia looked at me earnestly, something like admiration flickering briefly. "Maybe you're right. Either way, I'm grateful we finally got a chance to understand each other." Her sincerity touched me deeply, erasing the last traces of bitterness between us. "Me too." Across the yard, Alex waved cheerfully, chatting animatedly with Kevin, who had quickly become an honorary family member. My parents sat quietly, smiling warmly, their once critical eyes now filled with quiet pride and a measure of humility. Our relationships weren't perfect, they never would be, but genuine growth had taken root. Later that evening, as twilight gently darkened the sky, I found myself alone on the porch again, reflecting deeply. The quiet solitude felt comforting rather than isolating, each passing breeze a gentle reminder of how far I'd traveled. My phone buzzed lightly, interrupting my musings, a simple text from Professor Jenkins. My phone vibrated insistently, breaking the moment. It was Professor Jenkins, a rare, heartfelt message appearing on screen. "Just watched your speech. Proud doesn't cover it. You're exactly who I hoped you'd become." My heart swelled painfully with gratitude. The validation I'd once desperately sought now felt secondary to the deep sense of self-acceptance I'd found on this journey. A week later, I accepted an invitation to speak at a smaller gathering, students at my old university, many facing the same doubts and struggles I'd endured years ago. Standing in front of those hopeful faces, I recognized myself in each anxious gaze, every hesitant question. After my talk, a young woman approached timidly, eyes brimming with uncertainty. "How did you keep going?" she whispered, "when everyone thought you'd fail?" I smiled gently, seeing my younger self reflected back clearly. Because the voice inside me, telling me who I could be, eventually became louder than every voice outside. She nodded slowly, eyes brightening with newfound courage. "Thank you," she whispered earnestly. I think I really needed to hear that." As she walked away confidently, I felt profoundly grateful, not just for my own transformation, but for the opportunity to ignite hope in someone else. Standing tall in the truth of my journey, openly sharing vulnerability and triumph alike, gave me purpose beyond any external success. Later that night, I reflected on everything that had brought me here. My story wasn't about proving anyone wrong, it was about discovering my own strength, reclaiming my voice, and inspiring others to believe in theirs. Success wasn't recognition from others, it was this: knowing exactly who I was and finally, unapologetically owning my place in the world. I was no longer invisible. I was seen, not just by others, but most importantly, by myself. Have you ever found your voice after years of silence? If my journey resonated with you, please share your story below. I'd love to celebrate your victories. Don't forget to subscribe for the final chapter. Trust me, the ending is worth it. As the final paperwork for the acquisition settled quietly onto my desk, I felt a profound sense of closure. It wasn't the money, nor the public acclaim, nor even the newfound respect from those who had doubted me. It was the quiet satisfaction of seeing a dream, once fragile and uncertain, now standing firm, strong enough to change lives. My nerves buzzed with tension as I stood backstage at the Entrepreneurial Innovation Summit, microphone clipped securely, heart thumping against my chest. Hundreds of people waited in the auditorium, eager to hear the overnight success story of someone they thought had appeared from nowhere. Kevin slapped my shoulder affectionately, sensing my anxiety. "Hey, relax, you were born for this," I chuckled dryly. "Born for public speaking? Hardly." "No," he said firmly, "born to inspire. Tell them your truth the way you lived it. That's powerful." With a deep breath, I stepped out onto the brightly lit stage, applause greeting me warmly. As I began to speak, my anxiety faded into calm clarity. "I know you're expecting a story about overnight success," I began, my voice steady. "But the truth is much messier and far less glamorous. My journey didn't begin with applause, it started in silence, overshadowed by doubt and disbelief." As I spoke, the room quieted, eyes fixed attentively. I shared openly, describing the secret struggles, the countless nights working tirelessly without validation, the emotional toll of feeling invisible to those who mattered most. As the words flowed, vulnerability became strength, doubt transformed into determination. I noticed heads nodding, eyes shining with recognition, my story resonating deeply with theirs. "I learned something important along the way," I continued softly, my voice filled with conviction. "The greatest barrier to success isn't failure or rejection. It's believing the voices that tell you what you can't be, what you can't achieve. When you silence those voices, when you finally believe in your own worth and purpose, everything changes." The room erupted in applause, louder and warmer than before. As I stepped off the stage, Kevin hugged me fiercely. "You killed it," he said proudly, voice thick with emotion. "You showed them the real you." After the talk, as I gathered my belongings, I spotted Alex and Julia standing near the exit, waiting patiently. My heart skipped briefly, surprise mingled with uncertainty. Alex grinned broadly, offering a proud handshake. "That was phenomenal, truly inspirational." Julia smiled softly, hesitating before speaking. "You were amazing up there. It made me realize how blind we've been. I'm proud of you." Hearing those words from Julia felt surreal, yet deeply healing. "Thank you," I said sincerely, emotion tightening my throat. "That means a lot." My father finally broke the silence, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Well, why didn't you tell us sooner?" I hesitated, then spoke honestly. "Because every time I tried, no one seemed interested enough to listen. It was easier to let you believe I was just figuring things out." My mother's eyes softened slightly, realization dawning on her face. "I had no idea." Julia, still visibly flustered, managed a quiet, reluctant nod. "Congratulations," she murmured, looking down at her plate. "I guess we were all wrong." Her admission, though small, felt like a monumental victory. But as dinner continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that my newfound visibility brought with it complicated emotions. I caught occasional glances from my relatives, curiosity and envy mingling in their eyes. My success, now undeniable, shifted the family dynamic in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. After dinner, Alex pulled me aside discreetly. "You handled that well," he smiled warmly. "And don't let anyone diminish your achievements, you deserve every bit of this." I took a deep breath, feeling gratitude swell within me. "Thank you, Alex. Honestly, having you in my corner tonight, it made all the difference." He nodded, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "They'll come around? And if not? Well, their loss." As the night drew to a close, I stepped outside once more, the cool night air washing over me. The stars above seemed clearer, brighter somehow, mirroring my newfound clarity. The family gathering had felt like crossing a threshold, painful yet necessary. Tonight, for the first time, I had truly owned my story, stepping confidently out from the shadows. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was no longer invisible. Ever experienced a moment when people finally saw your true value? Share your stories below. I genuinely want to hear them. And if you're eager to see what happens next, subscribe and stay with me. The story is far from over. Life has a way of pushing us to the edge of our comfort zones exactly when we start to feel safe again. The sudden offer to acquire our company thrust me squarely into the spotlight, forcing me to stand openly before a world I'd once hidden from. Overnight, my once private existence became headline news, thrusting me onto magazine covers, podcast interviews, and panels that felt both exhilarating and surreal. My father finally broke the silence, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Well, why didn't you tell us sooner?" I hesitated, then spoke honestly. "Because every time I tried, no one seemed interested enough to listen. It was easier to let you believe I was just figuring things out." My mother's eyes softened slightly, realization dawning on her face. "I had no idea." Julia, still visibly flustered, managed a quiet, reluctant nod. "Congratulations," she murmured, looking down at her plate. "I guess we were all wrong." Her admission, though small, felt like a monumental victory. But as dinner continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that my newfound visibility brought with it complicated emotions. I caught occasional glances from my relatives, curiosity and envy mingling in their eyes. My success, now undeniable, shifted the family dynamic in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. After dinner, Alex pulled me aside discreetly. "You handled that well," he smiled warmly. "And don't let anyone diminish your achievements, you deserve every bit of this." I took a deep breath, feeling gratitude swell within me. "Thank you, Alex. Honestly, having you in my corner tonight, it made all the difference." He nodded, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "They'll come around, and if not, well, their loss." As the night drew to a close, I stepped outside once more, the cool night air washing over me. The stars above seemed clearer, brighter somehow, mirroring my newfound clarity. The family gathering had felt like crossing a threshold, painful yet necessary. Tonight, for the first time, I had truly owned my story, stepping confidently out from the shadows. The future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was no longer invisible. Ever experienced a moment when people finally saw your true value? Share your stories below. I genuinely want to hear them. And if you're eager to see what happens next, subscribe and stay with me. The story is far from over. Life has a way of pushing us to the edge of our comfort zones, exactly when we start to feel safe again. The sudden offer to acquire our company thrust me squarely into the spotlight, forcing me to stand openly before a world I'd once hidden from. Overnight, my once private existence became headline news, thrusting me onto magazine covers, podcast interviews, and panels that felt both exhilarating and surreal. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, returning his smile nervously. The room felt smaller than usual, tension quietly humming beneath the polite chatter. My stomach knotted tightly as I found a seat, carefully avoiding eye contact with Julia's critical gaze. Conversation quickly resumed, swirling around familiar topics: Julia's recent promotion, Alex's successful deals, my cousin's acceptance to a prestigious university. As always, the spotlight shone brightly on everyone except me. But tonight, something inside urged me not to shrink into invisibility. Tonight was different. My father cleared his throat loudly, turning his sharp eyes toward me. Still exploring options, or have you finally settled into something? I hesitated, feeling everyone's attention focus sharply. Actually, I've been working on something for a while now. Julia scoffed lightly, eyebrows raised. Oh, this should be good. I felt my cheeks flush, but forced myself to meet her eyes steadily. It's a digital wellness app. We recently secured funding and… My mother waved her hand dismissively. Another app? Everyone seems to have an app these days. I suppose it's a nice hobby. I clenched my fists beneath the table, frustration bubbling inside. Before I could respond, Alex interjected gently but firmly. Actually, it's far from a hobby. I've seen their platform. It's groundbreaking. The room went quiet, all eyes turning to Alex. Julia stared incredulously, clearly annoyed by her husband's unexpected defense of me. Groundbreaking? She echoed skeptically. Since when do you defend pipe dreams? Alex took a measured breath, calmly meeting her stare. Since I found out your sibling is behind one of the most promising startups in digital wellness right now, investors in my circle can't stop talking about it. Julia's mouth opened slightly, surprise etched clearly on her face. My parents exchanged confused glances, suddenly unsure how to react. I swallowed nervously, the silence stretching painfully. You run that company? Julia finally asked, disbelief coloring every word. I straightened my shoulders, meeting her gaze without flinching. Yes, Kevin and I built it from nothing. It took years and countless sleepless nights, but yes, that's me. The room felt unbearably still. My heart thundered loudly in my ears, a mixture of pride, relief, and fear mingling in my chest. Alex looked at me with pride. My parents wore stunned expressions, and Julia seemed frozen, uncertain how to respond. Days blurred together as our business accelerated. Our app's downloads skyrocketed. Articles appeared daily about our revolutionary approach. For the first time, I truly allowed myself to embrace success, not just quietly in the dark, but openly and unapologetically. Then, on a chilly Friday evening, just as I settled down to review marketing strategies, my phone lit up. A text from my mother made my stomach drop. Family dinner this weekend, celebrating Julia and Alex's anniversary. We expect you to be there. I closed my eyes, heart pounding. Facing Alex had been one thing, but now I'd have to face them all. The skeptical eyes, the barely hidden judgments, the uncomfortable questions, but this time something was different. I wasn't going empty-handed. I had proof, tangible evidence, that I was capable, successful, and driven. Maybe, just maybe, they could finally see me for who I truly was. Taking a deep breath, I typed out a simple reply, I'll be there. This dinner was no longer just another gathering, it was the threshold of revelation. I'd been hiding in the shadows for so long, fighting unseen battles, desperate for validation from people who refused to look beneath the surface. But now, I was ready. Ready to step into the light. Ever had a moment that changed everything? I'd love to hear your story. Comment below. If you're curious how this dinner turns out, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Trust me, things are about to heat up. When the evening of Julia and Alex's anniversary dinner arrived, I stood nervously outside the familiar, yet intimidating door to my parents' house. Unlike every gathering before, tonight felt electric, charged with anticipation, dread, and the faintest flicker of hope. My palms were sweaty, my heart pounded rapidly. But beneath the anxiety, something new stirred. A quiet strength, born from knowing exactly who I was and what I had achieved. I pushed open the door and stepped inside, immediately enveloped in laughter, the clinking of glasses, and warm golden light. My family was already gathered in the living room, their smiles faltering slightly as they noticed my entrance. My parents nodded curtly. Julia gave me a quick glance of mild annoyance, but Alex smiled genuinely, raising his glass in greeting. You made it, he said warmly. Glad you're here. Our victory dance around the tiny office was uncoordinated and ridiculous, but for those few minutes nothing else mattered. Not my family's disappointment, not my exhausting double life, nothing. We had done something real, something undeniable. The following weeks became a whirlwind of meetings, interviews, and press. Our modest wellness app suddenly garnered attention from major media outlets, praised as a revolutionary tool in mental health and wellness. Kevin basked in the spotlight, charismatic and confident, while I managed strategy and growth quietly from behind the scenes. The recognition was thrilling, but it was also unsettling. I was no longer invisible, and with visibility came vulnerability. One evening, Kevin nudged me as we prepared to leave yet another networking event. "Hey, isn't that your brother-in-law?" I followed his gaze, spotting Alex deep in conversation with some finance executives. My chest tightened instinctively. Alex belonged in this world of sleek suits and confident smiles. I didn't. Not openly, anyway. "Let's slip out quietly," I whispered, avoiding eye contact. "I'm not ready for this." But fate wasn't on my side. Before we could reach the door, a familiar voice called out, "Hey, hold on a second." We turned around slowly. Alex strode toward us, curiosity glinting in his eyes. "Thought it was you?" he said warmly, shaking my hand. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Oh, just tagging along," I mumbled awkwardly. Kevin chuckled, nudging me playfully. "Actually, your sibling-in-law here runs the show." Alex's eyebrows shot up, genuinely intrigued. "Wait, you're behind all this?" I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how surreal this moment was. "It's complicated." Alex laughed softly, shaking his head. "Your family has no idea, do they?" I hesitated, unable to lie. "No, not yet." Alex nodded thoughtfully, giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "Well, they're missing out. What you've built is impressive, seriously." The sincerity in his voice stunned me into silence. Recognition from someone inside my family, someone so respected, felt unreal. As Alex drifted back into the crowd, Kevin clapped me on the back, triumphantly. "See, not everyone is blind," he grinned. That night, as I lay awake in bed, a strange sense of validation settled over me. But beneath that was anxiety. Alex knew. How long until everyone else did? Was I ready to face my family's reaction? "We started because we believe in something bigger than ourselves. We believe in you." His sincerity tugged at something deep inside me, igniting the embers that had nearly burned out. I felt tears threaten, but fought them back, nodding slowly. "Thanks, Kev. I needed that." "Good," he smiled, nudging my shoulder gently. "Because we have users to serve, investors to impress, and a world to change." We spent the rest of the night brainstorming ideas, tweaking code, and laughing until exhaustion overtook us. By dawn, I felt reinvigorated, ready once again to face the skeptical world beyond our walls. As I stepped out into the crisp morning air, I knew my family might never see the battles I fought silently each day. They might never truly understand. But that was okay. My fight wasn't for their approval, it was for something far more important. It was for me. Have you ever had someone who believed in you, even when no one else did? Share your story below. And if you resonate with this journey, subscribe and stay with me. The road ahead is about to get interesting. It began like any other Thursday, coffee in one hand, laptop balanced precariously in the other as I pushed open the door to our cramped makeshift office. The air inside was thick with the scent of stale pizza and fading dreams. Kevin sat hunched over his screen, eyes glazed, headphones blaring. I tapped him lightly on the shoulder. He jumped, nearly knocking over his coffee cup. "Dude, warn a guy," he laughed, pulling off his headphones. "Sorry," I grinned, setting down my things. "Any news from that venture capitalist firm?" Kevin's smile dimmed slightly. "Nothing yet. Honestly, I'm starting to—" He stopped mid-sentence, eyes widening as he stared at the glowing screen of his phone. "Wait, this can't be real," he whispered. My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" He turned the phone toward me, his voice shaking. They're funding us. 10 times the amount we asked for." I stared dumbly at the screen. Disbelief and joy battling for dominance in my chest. I blinked, then read the email again, searching for the catch, the fine print. But it was true. After years of rejection, struggle, and secret sacrifice, someone finally believed in our vision enough to invest in it. "Oh my God," I breathed. "Kev, this changes everything." "It sure as hell does," Kevin shouted, jumping to his feet. "We made it." Besides Kevin, there was only one other person who knew about my secret venture. A gruff yet kind-hearted man named Professor Jenkins. Jenkins had taught entrepreneurship courses at my university, notoriously tough but deeply invested in his students' futures. I approached him timidly after graduation, expecting dismissal, but instead received something far more valuable. "You have fire in you," Jenkins told me after patiently listening to my shaky pitch. "Your idea is raw, your execution unpolished, but your passion, I can work with that." From that day on, Jenkins became my reluctant mentor. He offered blunt criticism, invaluable advice, and a much-needed dose of reality whenever my ambition clouded judgment. He also quietly provided connections, introductions to investors and startup resources, but always refused recognition or praise. "I'm just here to nudge you," he'd say, a rare smile crinkling his eyes. "You're the one who has to run." Still, even with Kevin's enthusiasm and Jenkins' stern guidance, doubt crept in during lonely nights when I stared at the ceiling, wondering if my family was right. Were my dreams just childish fantasies? Was I deluding myself into believing I could actually create something worthwhile? One particularly brutal night, after receiving yet another rejection from potential investors, I sat alone in my dimly lit office, staring blankly at the wall. My phone buzzed. It was my mother, sending a photo of Julia and Alex celebrating yet another promotion. The caption read, "Proud of these two. They know how to chase success." I swallowed hard, jealousy and bitterness rising. It felt like salt in an open wound, confirming everything I feared. I thought about texting back, explaining my own progress, showing screenshots of our user base slowly but surely growing, but I stopped myself. They wouldn't understand, not yet. The door creaked open suddenly, snapping me out of my thoughts. Kevin stepped in holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Thought you'd still be here," he said, handing 1 cup to me. He paused, catching my grim expression. "Hey, you okay?" I hesitated, then exhaled heavily. "I don't know anymore, Kev. Maybe everyone's right. Maybe this is all just a mistake." Kevin sank into the chair beside me, quiet for a moment, then turned toward me seriously. "You know why we started this, right? It wasn't to impress your family, or prove anyone wrong." As I finally stepped back inside, I knew one thing for certain: my story wasn't finished. Not yet. The world might soon see who I really was, and maybe, just maybe, my family would finally understand. If you've ever felt invisible, doubted, or misunderstood, you're not alone. I'd love to hear your story too. Share your experiences in the comments, and don't forget to follow along to see what happens next. Building a startup in secrecy isn't glamorous. It's a quiet war fought in shadows, battles waged on late-night coffee and stubborn hope. My family saw an aimless drifter, someone unable, or worse, unwilling, to commit to the safe, ordinary career path they'd mapped out for me. But behind my seemingly stagnant life was a flurry of calculated risks, restless dreams, and an unyielding refusal to settle for mediocrity. My mornings were spent at a tedious entry-level job I hated, filing endless paperwork, taking orders from people half my intelligence, and swallowing my pride to keep the lights on. Each day tested my patience, but each paycheck meant more runway, more time to breathe life into my true passion, the digital wellness app I had poured my soul into creating. Every evening, after work, I retreated into a small, rented office downtown, a cramped room barely large enough for 2 desks and a broken coffee machine, but it was mine. Kevin, my best friend and co-founder, would already be there, eyes red from coding marathons, but still radiating energy. Kevin never let doubt creep into our little sanctuary, no matter how many setbacks we faced. "Hey, you look exhausted," Kevin observed one night as I dropped heavily into my chair, setting down a stack of papers I'd smuggled out of the office. "Just another day in paradise," I joked bitterly, leaning back and rubbing my temples. "My boss lectured me for 30 minutes about stapling reports incorrectly. I'm pretty sure even he doesn't care." Kevin laughed softly, shaking his head. "They have no idea what you're capable of, but soon they'll see. Trust me, you won't be stapling papers forever." His unwavering optimism always managed to pull me back from the edge. Kevin believed in our vision even when I stumbled, helping me to stand back up and press forward. He had turned down multiple promising job offers to chase this dream alongside me, never once doubting our potential. Suffocating judgment. As dessert plates cleared away, I excused myself, stepping onto the back porch to find solitude in the crisp evening air. The darkness wrapped around me like a comforting blanket, hiding the tears I refused to shed in front of anyone else. Their opinions shouldn't matter, I reminded myself fiercely, gripping the railing until my knuckles whitened. They don't know you. They've never known the real you. I slipped my phone out of my pocket, checking an urgent notification. The screen illuminated my face with a single message from my co-founder Kevin. "Congrats! Funding just came through. Biggest round yet. We did it!" I exhaled sharply, joy and disbelief surging through me in equal measure. My little startup, built from countless sleepless nights, relentless work, and unwavering passion, was finally being recognized. Yet here I was, celebrating this breakthrough alone on a cold porch, hiding from a family who refused to believe in me. Footsteps interrupted my thoughts. Alex emerged quietly from the doorway, glancing toward the warm glow inside the house before joining me in the shadows. "You okay?" he asked gently, his voice uncharacteristically soft. I pocketed my phone quickly, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just getting some air." Alex nodded slowly, eyes narrowing with genuine concern. "Listen, don't take it personally, they mean well. Do they?" I whispered bitterly, unable to mask the hurt in my voice. "Or is it easier to assume the worst about someone you don't understand?" His gaze lingered thoughtfully on my face. "I guess we all have our blind spots. Maybe there's more to your story that we don't know." I looked away, afraid of revealing too much. "Maybe." Alex hesitated a moment longer, then clapped a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Well, whatever you're working on, don't give up. Sometimes people's eyes only open when they're forced to." He turned, disappearing back inside, leaving me stunned. It was the first time anyone from my family had expressed even the slightest faith in me, however indirectly. I stood there for another long moment, the air now feeling less suffocating, the weight on my shoulders a little lighter. Alex's words echoed in my mind like a quiet promise, a hint of validation I hadn't realized I desperately craved. Could I ever show them the truth? Could I ever share what I'd built, what I'd become, without fear of rejection? The heavy oak door of my parents' house felt colder than usual, as my fingertips brushed against its familiar grooves. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the wave of judgment that would undoubtedly greet me on the other side. The annual family gathering was always the same, laughter echoing off the walls, eyes filled with pride as they discussed successful careers and picture-perfect lives, and then the inevitable, awkward silence when the conversation shifted toward me. I stepped inside quietly, slipping off my coat as voices carried from the dining room. My mother glanced up first, her eyes briefly lighting up before clouding over. "Oh, you came. We weren't sure if you'd make it." "I wouldn't miss it," I replied softly, trying my best to sound casual. But her tight-lipped smile betrayed disappointment that I was once again attending alone, jobless in their eyes, without anything worthwhile to share. I found a seat near the end of the table, overshadowed by my older sister, Julia, who glowed confidently next to her husband, Alex. He was the family golden boy, charming and successful, a finance executive whose name alone commanded respect at gatherings like these. "So," my father began, casting me a sidelong glance, "any new jobs on the horizon, or still figuring things out?" Heat rose to my cheeks as my fingers tightened around my napkin. "Still exploring options," I answered simply. It was easier than explaining the truth, that I'd spent every waking hour building a startup from scratch, sacrificing sleep, social life, and security for something they'd never understand. Julia cleared her throat dramatically, leaning forward. "At your age, exploring options sounds more like procrastinating, doesn't it?" The sting of her words was nothing new, yet they cut just as deeply every time. I bit my tongue, swallowing the hurt that threatened to spill out. "It's complicated." "Complicated," Julia chuckled, exchanging amused glances with our cousins. "It's simple. Either you're working or you're not." Alex said nothing, studying me silently, his gaze thoughtful. Unlike Julia, his silence didn't feel mocking, it felt curious. It was almost as if he saw something beneath the surface, something the others were too blind or unwilling to recognize. Dinner continued in a blur of forced conversations and pointed inquiries. I retreated further into myself, counting down the minutes until I could gracefully escape the sail